Welcome to the Paycheck Project. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button.
Today, we are digging into the origin story of the financial independence retire early movement. You know it as FIRE. We're not just going to look at the spreadsheets. We're going to uncover the who, the why, and the really powerful ideas that kicked this whole thing off. So this is part 2 of our series. In our last explainer, we really broke down the what of FIRE, the nuts and bolts, the savings rates. But a movement, well, it's more than just numbers, isn't it? It's a story. Today, we're jumping in the time machine to find its intellectual roots and meet the people who lit that first spark. All right, here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with the architects of the idea. Then we'll look at the actual blueprint they created. After that, we'll see how the internet just poured gasoline on the fire, understand the perfect storm that made it explode with a new generation, and finally, trace how it went from this niche idea to a global subculture. Okay, let's get right into it. To really get F.I.R.E., you have to ask a pretty basic question. Where did these ideas, which still sound kind of radical today, actually come from? You know, as modern and techie as this whole movement feels, its DNA, it's not digital at all. The book that laid out the entire foundation for FIRE came out before Google, before social media, before the internet we know today even existed. It was basically a counterculture bombshell just hiding in plain sight in the personal finance eye. And that foundational text is a book by Vicki and Joe Dominguez called Your Money or Your Life. And look, this was not just another book about how to save a few bucks. It was a philosophical blueprint for a whole new way of living, one that would quietly spark a revolution decades down the road. The idea at the heart of the book was totally radical for its time. It was this: your money and your life are not separate things. Your money is a direct extension of your most precious, totally non-renewable resource, your time. So it forces you to ask not just, hey, can I afford this? But, is this thing really worth a piece of my life? And the core concept that makes all this click is what they call life energy. It completely reframes how you think about your job. You're not paid in dollars per hour. No, you are trading a finite amount of your one and only life for that money. When you start looking at a price tag through that lens, every single purchase suddenly feels a lot heavier, doesn't it? But this book wasn't just abstract philosophy. It gave you an actual actionable plan. And these first 4 steps, they're all about deep, radical introspection. It's not just about tracking your expenses. It's about calculating your real hourly wage after you factor in your commute, your work clothes, the de-stressing you have to do. And then you convert every dollar you spend back into the minutes or hours of your life you traded for it. Let me tell you, that is an eye-opening exercise. Then, the program shifts gears from thinking to doing. This part is all about making your progress real and visible. You literally create a huge chart for your wall to track everything: your income, your spending, and most importantly, the income your investments are generating. It's a visual feedback loop designed to keep you laser-focused on one very specific goal. And that goal is what they call the crossover point. This is the F.I. in F.I.R.E. It's not some vague idea of getting rich. It's a concrete mathematical finish line. It is the exact moment when your money starts working harder for you than you are working for it. That's the moment when having a traditional job becomes truly optional. That's liberation. And this one idea completely democratized retirement. It wasn't about needing a mansion or a yacht. It was about having enough. By defining financial freedom as a specific number you could calculate, Your Money or Your Life turned it from a far-off dream for the super wealthy into an achievable engineering problem for regular people. Okay, so if this brilliant blueprint was published all the way back in 1992, why did it take nearly 20 years for the movement to really catch fire? Well, the book gave us the what, but it was technology that gave us the how. The internet was the massive amplifier this quiet little philosophy had been waiting for. 2 key figures really stand out as the digital translators for this new generation. On one hand, you had Jacob Lund Fisker, who you could call the technician. He had this super analytical, systems-based approach that really clicked with engineers. And on the other hand, you had Adeney, the preacher, who would become way more famous as Mr. Money Mustache. And here is why Mr. Money Mustache became an absolute phenomenon. He wasn't just some guy with a theory. He was the living proof. He was a software engineer with a young family, and he'd actually done it. He hit that crossover point and retired at the absolutely jaw-dropping age of 30. He didn't win the lottery. He just systematically applied these exact principles. The real genius of Mr. Money Mustache was in how he rebranded the ideas. He took a word like frugality, which just sounds like sacrifice and misery, and he reframed it as badassity. In his world, living efficiently wasn't about what you were giving up. It was about being smarter and more optimized than the wasteful consumer culture around you. He literally made saving money sound cool. Now, what's really crucial here is that these early bloggers didn't just write articles. They built a whole digital infrastructure. Blogs, forums, and especially the financial independence subreddit created a space for a real community to form. People could share their actual numbers, ask for advice, and get support for a lifestyle that, let's be honest, seemed pretty weird to most people. This digital ecosystem was the glue that held the whole movement together. So now you've got this powerful, time-tested idea, and you have a powerful new medium to spread it. But it still needed one more ingredient to really, truly ignite. A generation that was ready and, frankly, pretty desperate to hear its message. You can really see it on this timeline. The idea is just kind of sitting there for years. Then, 2008. The global financial crisis hits and just shatters a generation's faith in the traditional way of doing things. And right into that moment of deep uncertainty, this new voice shows up online with a compelling alternative path. It was the perfect storm. The right message at the exact right time on the perfect platform. You have to put yourself in the shoes of a millennial entering the workforce back then. The economic landscape looked so bleak. You're talking stagnant wages, insecure gig economy jobs, and just mountains of student debt. The old promise their parents grew up with, work hard for 40 years, get a pension, be secure, it just sounded like a complete fantasy. And right into that cloud of economic anxiety, F.I.R.E. landed not just as a clever savings plan, but as a lifeboat. It offered this powerful story of empowerment and radical self-reliance. In a world that felt so volatile and completely out of their control, it was a message that said, no, you can take control of your own destiny. And you don't need to depend on these broken systems. So when you pull back and trace its journey, you can see exactly how these three very different forces all collided to turn a niche philosophy into a full-blown subculture. First, it all started with a single, radical, counterculture book that totally redefined our relationship with money and time, planting an idea that was way ahead of its time. Then, almost 20 years later, that idea finally found its voice. It was handed a massive digital megaphone by the internet and a few charismatic bloggers who translated it for a whole new century. And finally, that message landed right in the lap of a generation that was grappling with economic uncertainty, a generation that desperately needed its message of control and hope. And that's what ignited a powerful socioeconomic movement. And all this leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about as we look to the future. The F.I.R.E. movement was a direct answer to the economic challenges of the 2010s. So what new philosophies, what new movements are going to emerge from the unique economic pressures we're all facing today? We'll start to unpack that very question in part 3 of our series. Thanks for watching.